Have you ever wondered what happens when decades of trusted trade suddenly face a severe crisis? What if your favorite products became more expensive overnight? Jobs vanished from entire communities, and industries that built nations scrambled just to survive. That's exactly what's unfolding across Canada in 2025, as U.S. tariffs reshape not just trade numbers, but the lives of millions of working families. Today, we're diving deep into the top 8 Canadian industries hit hardest by U.S. tariffs. From energy giants to automotive powerhouses, these sectors are facing unprecedented challenges that will ripple through the economy for years to come. Stay with me until the end, because what's happening to industry number 1 isn't just shocking, it's reshaping how Canadians think about their economic future. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to GlobeWisp, and hit that notification bell. Starting at number 8, we have Canada's energy sector. It is facing what many consider the most complex tariff situation of 2025. The United States imposed a 10% tariff on Canadian energy products and potash in March 2025, affecting an estimated $15 billion in annual cross-border trade. Most Canadian oil and gas exports still qualify for USMCA exemptions, but the remaining shipments have seen costs rise dramatically and profit margins squeezed to breaking points. The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, which was supposed to boost Canada's energy exports, is now seeing slower growth as regulatory uncertainty and tariff complications pile up. Potash, that crucial fertilizer ingredient, is getting hit by the full 10% tariff with no exemptions. Canadian potash producers, who dominated the U.S. market for decades, are suddenly finding their exports less competitive than alternatives from other countries. Energy exports to the United States fell 6% in the second quarter of 2025, while potash exports specifically have dropped 8% since March. Investment projects worth over $3 billion have been paused across Alberta and Saskatchewan. Small towns that depend on energy sector jobs are watching their young people leave for opportunities elsewhere. At number 7, Canada's technology and electronics sector is experiencing what industry insiders call a supply chain nightmare. Tariffs on electronics, telecommunications equipment, and computer parts have raised costs by 12 to 15% for Canadian firms. But the real damage goes much deeper. Picture a Canadian startup that spent 2 years developing an innovative device. Your supply chain spans 3 countries, but suddenly, tariffs disrupt every link in that chain. Component costs spike, delivery schedules collapse, and your competitors in countries without trade disputes gain massive advantages overnight. Electronics exports to the United States have declined 9% since April 2025. Laptop prices have increased 7% year over year, smartphones cost more, and smart home devices are facing both price hikes and longer delivery times. The tech corridor spanning Vancouver to Seattle, once a symbol of seamless cross-border collaboration, now faces new friction with every shipment. Companies are restructuring operations, some moving production entirely, while others are scaling back their ambitions. Number 6 brings us to agriculture, an industry facing a perfect storm of trade retaliation. After Canada imposed duties on Chinese electric vehicles and metals, China responded with a devastating 75.8% duty on Canadian canola seed, effectively blocking access to a market worth $44 billion annually. Over 40,000 producers across the prairies are facing immediate price drops and financial losses. U.S. tariffs on processed foods and agricultural machinery have raised costs throughout the supply chain. Walk into any Canadian grocery store and you'll see the effects immediately. Peanut butter prices have risen 7 to 8%. Canned soup, fruit juice, and other staples are following the same upward trend. Prairie farming families who've worked the same land for generations are watching commodity prices collapse while input costs soar. Some are selling equipment, others are considering leaving farming entirely. The federal government has responded with $700 million in loan guarantees and $500 million in direct grants.
At number 5, we enter aerospace, an industry representing some of Canada's highest technological achievements. The 39% decline in aerospace exports to the United States since April 2025 threatens Canada's position in global aerospace networks. Canada's aerospace industry, centered in Montreal and Toronto, has built reputations for precision and innovation. But tariffs on aluminum have raised input costs by 25 to 50%, while supply chain delays create cascading problems throughout the sector. Production schedules that once ran with precision are now constantly disrupted. Aluminum deliveries that used to arrive on schedule now face weeks of delays. Over 12,000 jobs are at risk across Quebec and Ontario, highly skilled positions that represent years of training and expertise. Major manufacturers in Montreal are postponing new investments, while Toronto area suppliers are cutting shifts. The ripple effects extend far beyond the factories themselves, affecting aerospace engineers, technicians, and support staff throughout the industry.
Number 4 takes us into Canada's forests. The lumber and forestry industry faces a perfect storm. The United States has imposed anti-dumping and countervailing duties, adding 20 to 25% tariffs on Canadian wood products, effectively pricing Canadian lumber out of many U.S. construction projects. Construction projects across North America are being delayed because lumber costs have spiked beyond project budgets. A typical new home in the U.S. now costs an additional $8,000 to $10,000 in lumber alone, while Canadian sawmills watch their largest market become increasingly inaccessible. The Canadian government has responded with $700 million in loan guarantees and $500 million in direct grants. Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced that Canadian lumber will be prioritized in federal infrastructure projects, supporting the goal of building 500,000 homes annually. Lumber exports to the United States have declined 18% since March 2025. Forestry communities across British Columbia, Quebec, and the Atlantic provinces are watching sawmills reduce shifts or close temporarily, affecting entire regions built around the forestry economy. Number 3, we reach aluminum, the poster child for how trade wars can escalate beyond reason. The United States imposed a 25% tariff in March, but then doubled it to 50% in June, expanding the scope to include derivative products and essentially pricing Canadian aluminum out of the U.S. market entirely. Aluminum exports to the United States have plunged by 39% since March. When you include derivative products, the total trade impact reaches tens of billions of dollars. This means real communities like Alma, Quebec, where the smelter has been the economic anchor for generations, and Kitimat, BC, where Rio Tinto smelter provides hundreds of direct jobs. Over 10,000 jobs are directly at risk across Quebec and British Columbia, but the multiplier effects could impact 50,000 workers when you include suppliers and service industries. What makes this particularly tragic is the timing. Aluminum is critical for the green economy transition. Electric vehicles, renewable energy infrastructure, and energy-efficient buildings all depend heavily on aluminum. Just as Canada needs to expand production for climate goals, tariffs are forcing production cuts. Number 2, we reach steel, the backbone of modern industrial society. The tariff escalation has been swift and devastating. A 25% tariff imposed in March was doubled to 50% in June. Steel exports to the United States have dropped by over 40%. Steel is fundamental to everything else. When steel struggles, automotive manufacturing struggles. When steel costs spike, construction projects get canceled. Major steel mills in Hamilton and Quebec City have cut shifts dramatically, resulting in layoffs that affect entire industrial ecosystems. The Canadian government responded with $12.6 billion in counter tariffs on U.S. steel, but this creates its own problems. Trade wars quickly become lose-lose situations where everyone pays higher costs and industries in both countries suffer. Steel communities like Hamilton have developed entire cultures around industrial work. When mills cut production, they're disrupting social networks that have sustained communities for generations. And finally, at number 1, we reach the automotive sector. It is the most dramatic example of how trade wars can transform entire regional economies. The 25% tariff on cars and parts imposed in April 2025 has created chaos throughout Canada's automotive manufacturing ecosystem. Ontario and Quebec developed into crucial nodes in a continental production network where parts crossed borders multiple times during vehicle assembly. This integration created efficiency, but also vulnerability when trade relations break down. Auto exports to the United States have plunged to levels not seen since late 2022. Production cuts have affected more than 15,000 workers directly, but the total impact reaches hundreds of thousands when you include suppliers and service industries. Consumer behavior is already changing. Canadian buyers are increasingly choosing Japanese and European models not subject to tariff complications. Cities like Windsor, Oshawa, and Oakville built their economies around automotive manufacturing, and when assembly plants cut shifts, entire regions feel the impact. So there you have it, the top 8 Canadian industries hit hardest by U.S. tariffs in 2025. From energy and technology to agriculture and automotive, these sectors represent the backbone of Canada's economy